watching the News Hour at 9.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting breaking news of a fresh new study coming in from IIT Kanpur. Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan joining me on the show. There are three scenarios that have been pointed out by IIT Kanpur. These three scenarios are on the third wave of COVID, which is being projected by a study. Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan on the show. Madhav, three scenarios which say that the third wave could be anywhere between September and October. Please give us the details of the three scenarios painted by this study.
Well, absolutely, Navika, and there are three scenarios which are being looked at, as you rightly said. This is, of course, by a section of experts at IIT Kanpur, and what this is looking at is that, what if there is a back-to-normal situation where the presence of new variants is not there? In such a situation, we are looking at it peaking in the middle of, or rather the first week of October, and the total number at the peak will be around 3.25 lakhs. That's as per this particular study. However, if there are normal with virus mutations that will come up in such a situation, then we will be looking at a middle of September peak, and in this scenario the total peak that is being cited by this projection in the study is up to 5 lakh cases per day, or a little over 5 lakh cases per day. The third situation is if there are strict interventions that take place, and this is why it's very important for all of us to mask up, for all of us to maintain social distancing, for all of us to take precautions. If there are stricter interventions, then the peak comes only towards the end of October or the beginning of November, and the peak in such a situation would be around 1.75 to 1.8 lakhs. This is why it is very, very important for all of us as citizens, as the study very clearly shows, to take responsible measures to ensure that we do not contribute through our actions in any way towards the spread of COVID, and that's why this particular study is very, very important, Navika. We're talking about Delta Plus already. We're talking about the presence of it in more than 4 states now that have been reported, and in such a scenario, these, of course, modeling or these projections, whatever you choose to call it, is very, very important, because it is our behavior that will ultimately determine the spread of the third wave.
Well, thank you, Madhav, for joining me on the News Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, in April, the second wave of coronavirus had ravaged India. Close to 1.5 lakh deaths took place starting from the second week of February. And it is believed that the Delta virus, which was seen as a mutant variety, was behind this tragedy that unfolded. Today, the government has written to 3 states, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, on the shoots of some 40 cases which are now of a Delta Plus variant that has been discovered. These are not just in these 3 Indian states. About 155 cases have been reported in various countries across the world, and this is a further danger to the COVID fight that we are currently facing. And this has also been called by the Health Ministry a virus of concern, and that is something that will be discussed. And joining me tonight is Dr. Guleria, Director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and a man who has been following every single variant and every single way of how the treatment has been going on. Thank you very much, Dr. Guleria, for joining me on the News Hour tonight. It is nerve-wracking information that we get every day. IIT Kanpur just putting out a study that around September or October we'll have the third wave, and then there is the Delta Plus variant which is coming in. What do you think? What should be more worrying for us as citizens of India? The third wave or the Delta Plus variant, which is already there in at least 3 states as stated by the government?
Yes, so I think the first thing to understand is that although the Delta Plus variant is being reported and there are 40 plus cases as far as this AY.1 variant, which is a lineage of the Delta variant, is concerned, we still need more data to really be able to show whether how much of a concern this variant is. Is it being more infectious? Is it causing more deaths? Is it decreasing the efficacy of the vaccine? We don't know that for certain, but we have to be very vigilant, because we must learn from the second wave, where we initially had the alpha variant, and then subsequently the delta variant, which led to this huge surge of cases. Therefore, when we have a variant which is circulating in our country and we are just coming out of a second wave, I think it is very, very important that we be very cautious so that we don't really land up in a bad situation. I think what the IIT Kanpur data has shown is very, very important, because what it shows is that we can prevent or delay the third wave and decrease its intensity. And therefore, if we do three things, I think we will actually have a very little third wave. One is, if we have good COVID appropriate behavior, we wear our masks, we have physical distancing, wash our hands, and we make sure that crowds don't develop so that they don't become super spreading events. That is the first thing that we need to do. The second thing is, we need to have very aggressive surveillance, both to pick up the variant, see how it's behaving, and if in any area these variants are causing more and more cases, your infected case positivity rate is going up, you have to have a mini lockdown in that area. You cannot allow this surge that we saw in the second wave to happen. And the third most important thing that we need to do is vaccinate, 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 because more people we vaccinate, more the chances that the chain of transmission will be broken and less severe disease. We need to really do this for the next few months till we have a large number of people vaccinated. Therefore, I think what the study shows is we must not let our guard down. We've been doing that since we feel now that the second wave is over. You see crowds all over the place, people going out for holidays, really no COVID appropriate behavior. We seem to be inviting the third wave rather than trying to delay it.
Dr. Guleria, how worried? Are there any studies, any experience that we have from the 40 cases that have been discovered so far in India or the 155 cases worldwide on how dangerous is this Delta plus variant, given the fact that the Delta variant itself had India virtually on its knees? Any initial studies that tell us what will be the infection rate and how deadly it is going to be, if it does multiply in India?
So the two things are there. One is the Delta Plus has a mutation, the 417, which has also been seen in the Beta and the Gamma variant, which has made it more infectious. So people feel that this variant could be more infectious than the Delta variant and it could spread more rapidly. And that is why COVID appropriate behavior may be important. But we don't have clinical data or epidemiological data to substantiate this, and that's what we need to do in the coming days. The second thing that we need to really look at, and we need more data, is this variant causing more severe disease. Now, some people have argued that that was seen in one of the variants which had this mutant, and therefore it may cause more severe disease. But the 40 odd cases that we have in our country, we have not really found that in those cases there was more severe disease. Therefore, it may be less likely that this variant is causing a more severe disease leading to more deaths. The cause of concern where we need to really work aggressively and we need more data is this variant developing immune escape mechanisms so that our vaccine efficacy is coming down? Currently, the data suggests that that may not be the case, but I think we need to really be very cautious and do our studies and collect data very quickly so that we are ahead of the virus and we don't really have the problem that we had when we saw the second wave, where before we could do anything, there was a huge surge in the number of cases.
Dr. Guleria, yesterday there was a bit of a flip-flop over the terminology used for this variant. It was a virus of interest initially, then it became a virus of concern, then interest, then concern. How are these two terminologies different from each other? And currently, if this is a virus of concern, what does it imply for us as lay people?
So one thing we must understand, and maybe then I'll try and explain why maybe this confusion was there. What we must understand is that this virus mutates regularly. People believe that it probably mutates twice every month. Now, when it mutates, it becomes a variant of interest, the new mutation, because that mutation may not cause any harm to individuals. And therefore, it is just something of interest. It is of not really clinical significance. But once it does one of the following things, that is, the new variant starts causing more infection. It becomes more infectious. As compared to the previous variant, it starts causing more and more more and more infection in terms of more people getting infected. Or it develops a mechanism where it becomes more virulent. It is causing more severe cases, more deaths. Or it really develops what we call immune escape mechanism. That is, your vaccines are losing their efficacy, the drugs that you're giving are not effective, or people who have previously got infection with COVID start getting reinfection. And finally, if we find that this new variant is not being picked up by the tests that you're doing, then if any of these four things happen, then it becomes a variant of concern from a variant of interest. So now if you look at it from a puristic point of view, we need more data before we can say that the Delta plus variant is a variant of concern, because we don't have a lot of this data. But it is a variant which has emerged from the Delta lineage, and the Delta variant is already a variant of concern. So when we look at it from that point of view, and we look at whatever data is emerging, and we know that we need to be vigilant, then it is definitely a variant of concern, because it is having the potential capacity to be more infectious, possibly cause more deaths, and maybe decrease the efficacy of the vaccine. So that sort of change happened in the ministry, that from a variant of interest, it was being now looked at as a variant of concern, because I think we have to be ahead of the virus. We need to act before it becomes too late. And this is the lesson that we learned from the second wave.
Dr. Guleria, the question I want to ask you is community transmission. Considering that the Delta variant in itself, we saw a very high level of community transmission already happening. The Delta plus variant, do you think by the time we have data and clinical information, the community transmission in any case would have begun, and our lockdown would come in later than earlier? So how do we get an assessment of that? And how soon will the government or the scientists have an assessment of that?
So two parts. One is that to really see whether this is now becoming the dominant variant, we will have to do more and more genome sequencing testing to see that wherever we are testing, how many of cases are we picking up of Delta plus as compared to the Delta variant. But I think even before that, if in any area we find that the positivity rate has suddenly started increasing, India is showing a downward trend. But suppose in an area you suddenly find that the positivity rate is going up, and you find that more and more cases are coming into the hospital, that is the time when you must have a lockdown and start looking at the samples from that area to see whether a new variant has developed. And we must be very aggressive rather than wait and allow the infection to spread to other parts, and then we have this huge surge as we saw in the second wave. So no matter what be the variant, we shouldn't wait for the lab reports to come in. We should start acting as soon as we see an increase in the number of cases from a benchmark that we put. It could be a positivity rate of 5%. Any area where the positivity rate goes above 5%, we must have an aggressive lockdown. We must do testing, tracking, and treating, and we must be very aggressive so that the cases don't rise there.
Dr. Guleria, I want to ask you a very basic question. With the 40 cases that we already are seeing in India, have we already come to a conclusion that these cases or, this particular test is, catching the Delta plus variant? Number one. And number two, the vaccine efficacy. These 40 cases, at least on these 40 cases, have we done any study on whether they are vaccinated people who have got it or non-vaccinated, or what is the efficacy of the vaccinations, both Covaxin and Covishield, on patients already seen to be having the Delta plus variant?
So as far as vaccination is concerned, I think it's very important to understand vaccination will protect us from disease, but may not protect us from infection. So you may still get the COVID infection, or whether it be the old virus or the new variant. But the vaccine will have enough, will produce enough antibodies in your body so that you are not able to get more severe disease. The virus is not able to multiply inside you, and you don't get severe pneumonia, you don't land up in hospital or in the ICU, and you don't die because of COVID-19. So if you look at these 40 odd patients, all of them have not had severe disease. So if they've been vaccinated, they have been protected by the vaccine and they have not got severe disease. Therefore, like I said, as of now, it seems that the vaccines are effective, but this is a very small sample. We need to do lab studies also to be able to be sure that how effective are the vaccines. But remember, our vaccine efficacy is more than 80%. So with new variants, it may come down a little bit, but the WHO cutoff is 50%. So if our vaccine efficacy still is above 50%, they will still work as far as severe disease is concerned. So I think that is an important thing to keep in mind. Secondly, we need to clearly test more and see how many cases are we picking up. If we are picking up more and more cases of the Delta plus, then that means this is now taking over from Delta, and this is then becoming more of a cause of concern, and then we need to be very aggressive in our strategy of containment. Currently, that does not seem to be the case, but like I said, we need to be very vigilant because this virus behaves in a very aggressive manner. We saw that in the second wave. The number of cases just jumped and became exponential. We can't let that happen again, and that is why we need to be very vigilant. All states need to start testing, vaccinating, and making sure that any area where there is a surge, that area becomes a containment zone and we don't allow the virus to spread.
Well, before I let you go, Dr. Guleria, there's just one question that everybody wants to know. You are learned to have made a statement that the third wave would come in the next 6 to 8 weeks. At least that was your estimate. Now that the lockdown has gone away and people are moving towards normal life, do you still continue to hold the same view of 6 to 8 weeks? Or with the behavior that you're seeing in markets and crowded places, have you revised your estimates?
So my belief is that if we were to look at how waves happen in the past, most waves take 4 to 5 months to develop. But two things are very important, and those are, one of them is in our hands, the other is something we can't do anything about. The thing that we can do is good COVID appropriate behavior preventing crowds. If we are doing that, we have COVID appropriate behavior, we prevent crowds, prevent super spreading events, the third wave will be delayed and we will have a less of a spike. And the second thing is how the virus behaves. If the virus mutates and becomes a more infectious strain, then the third wave could happen early because we are allowing it to spread because we are not following COVID appropriate behavior. So my plea to everyone is that the virus is still around, it is mutating, it is becoming more infectious. Please don't take it lightly. Please observe COVID appropriate behavior. Don't let crowds form. We have really come out from a bad situation as far as second wave is concerned. We don't want that to happen again. And the data from IIT Kanpur is frightening. Therefore, we should be very, very vigilant.
Well, listen to the wise doctor, ladies and gentlemen, and to all viewers, it is in your hands at least 50% if you follow COVID appropriate behavior. The rest, of course, is based on mutations of the virus. Thank you very much, Dr. Guleria, and thank you, viewers, for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
You were watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned.